Good evening, everybody. And it's exactly 6:30 on the dot, and we start our session for. Now, as you know, today's subject that we'll be discussing is Mahashweta Devi. But before we come to that, and I invite and introduce my guests to you for today's Adda session. I love to call it an Adda session. This is not a serious kind of, but we'll be discussing many things about Mahashweta Devi today. I want to tell you a little bit about Kahani Kancheti. Kahani Kancheti believes in stories. So when I say stories, I mean that we think your life is a story, my life is a story, the world around us is a story. This session of an Adda also is a story. Literature, be it books, poetry, cinema, visual arts, performing arts. We see a story in everything. In fact, we actually see a kahani in everything. So we have our website, www.kahanikancheti.in, and the Facebook page, where we discuss and debate. And basically, our idea is to curate and package content for intellectual stimulation. It sounds big, but that's exactly what we are doing. So do visit our page. And if you have friends, if you like this show, like us on the page on Facebook. Visit our website. There are a lot of interesting blogs to read. We are a reasonably new platform, but we have great plans. And please follow us for our future. That is about Kahani Kancheti. And we hope that you will love this session, and we will be going further with more such sessions that we'll be putting up and hosting for you. Now, three people I need to thank, actually. The three has now become four. The first is my friend, my batchmate from La Martiniere, Lucknow, who actually suggested to me, why aren't we doing something on Mahashweta Devi? And we had just done something on blues music and B.B. King. And we had also done something on the Bengali author, essayist, Sayyid Mujtaba Ali. That was a session done in Bengali. And so I said, yeah, why not? We do this. And at that point of time, he also sent me a link for Shammo Dasgupta, who is here with us today, who has just translated the book of Mahashweta Devi. So the first thanks is to Anil Shivastav. The second is to Srinanda Mukherjee, my sibling. And I had to ask her to get me somebody who can get on to Mahashweta Devi. And she said, oh, just take this number and speak. So, hello, it happened immediately. And Sen is here with us. And all this was so smooth. Then I got hold of my graphic artist friend, Soumitra Dasgupta, and told him, ki, banao, Mahashweta Devi. And he immediately, in 45. So that's what you see. In 45 minutes, he churned out. And the fourth person is, of course, my niece, Joyita, who connected me to Shammo. So that's the whole, I think I owe this little thank you to them. So that next time when I go back to them, they will thank me again. So now let me bring in the guest, and one by one, let me introduce you all to both of them. And there we go. That's Nandini on your screen now. Add to stream, and that's Shammo Dasgupta, add to stream. Right. So we are all here. You can see our guests, and I can also see them. Why is this dancing not going? Yeah, that's clear. But now, before we get on to anything, we are incidentally we are doing very well in terms of number of views so far. So it's picking up. And what I'll do is that I'll first introduce Nandini to you. And I have a rider here. The rider, yeah, there's a rider, Nandini. You sent this to me. And I was told, please edit wherever you want this out, because I'm challenging anybody to edit this. Anybody who can edit this 500 rupees stock price straight away. This is absolutely amazing. Now, Nandini teaches English in Delhi University. She was fellow at the prestigious Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. She is the proud recipient of the Charles Wallace Fellowship for Academic Research in London, the Ambassador for Peace Prize for her work towards educating slum dwellers, and the Right India Award for her creative writing. She writes on diaspora studies, African studies, and comparative literature. Some of her academic publications include The Black Woman Speaks, Nopa, and Buchi Emeshta. Have I got that right? I hope. And the other book is Through the Diaspora Lens, volumes 1 and 2, published in 2017-2018. And on Mahashweta Devi, a critical perspective published in 2012. She has also interacted with her a number of times. Sen is a keen observer of the society and a social commentator. Her short stories have been featured in literary journals such as the Elusive Genre and the Muse. She has also been featured in Asian Collective of Short Stories and the Australia-India collaboration titled The Glass Wall. Anybody can edit this. I'd love to have anybody edit. That's what she had asked me to do. So I told her in Bengali that, and I'm sure we have a lot of Bengali audience today with Mahashweta Devi, so you all will understand. I said that ghare kota mata ache, kothay katbo, ghare na gordane. That means that whichever way I cut, I've got. So that's, Shammo has been very nice. He's a journalist in Bangalore right now, originally from Kolkata, Real Blue Pata Bhavan product, and he's a sports journalist with Crick Info. And I did ask him, Shammo, if you think you have to leave this this session Adda at 7:25 because your match starting at 7:30. He said, no, we'll carry on. So great. So that Shammo made it simple for me. She made it difficult, so I said I'll make it difficult for her by reading out the whole thing. All right. So now that you have met our guests and introduced to both of them, with who do I start? In fact, I have been trying to, in the last 10 minutes, I've been trying to prompt both of them, saying that y'all do it yourself, like let me get out of it because I am not really in this picture. I'm just only the operator.
You just go back to your introduction. You have to start with Nandini. I mean, it's.
That's
Okay, Nandini, let me start with you, and then we will all come to Shammo after that. The question is, Nandini, you have done a book on her. You have interacted, interviewed her. You have met her a number of times. You have also met some other people connected with Mahashweta Devi. Who is Mahashweta Devi? Who is Mahashweta Devi in the sense that is she just a writer, a story writer? She has a lot of books on children which were published, in Rong Marshall. Yes. If I recall correctly, for books on children. She had started by writing her version of Jhansi's Rani and whatever, for which she actually borrowed a camera from somebody and went across and shot those pictures. And she came back and said that she lives in. That was that one Mahashweta Devi. Then she became the tribal spokesperson. She became the face of the tribals, the Lodhas and the others. And there is a third thing that I want to. She was a self-professed communist. She was part of the IPTA, and we know about that part of her life. And at one point of time, we do know from records and from personal what we have heard from people, she had a very tough time. She was almost, somebody said that she used to sell some, soap powder at one point of time, and that's how it happened. And one more thing, suddenly I find she has been also labeled as a feminist. So somebody who has worked for or looked into the views of the tribals, to poor people, to a rickshaw wala, and that I would refer to our friend Akashe Baruder Gandho, who is now the Dalit, who came and asked him, Jiji Bhisha, what does Jiji Bhisha mean? At the same time, the person who is writing, and there is also, we know of a case when a tribal, she was the guest staying with her, walks in, has a bath in her bathroom and uses her comb, and she's quite cool about it. A very, very cool person. I mean, one of the coolest person I have known. Now, is she also feminist? Because she's also been, except that I must admit, I really not very clear what exactly is a feminist. but is she also a feminist? Because she seems to be, yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Now, Nandini, I've dropped all these questions and this is your take on.
That's a gamut of questions. I think I will answer the first bit, and the latter part of it, let it come up. Let's talk feminism at some other point, I think. But when you say, what did I think of Mahashweta, let me relate this incident exactly as it happened. So I have never lived in West Bengal. Know very little, barring what reading I have done, very scattered kind of reading from my grandfather's almari. Whichever book I would find, I would read. So very scattered reading and all of that. And then, thanks to my J2, I was researching some areas which also were common to what Mahashweta had written about. And then I was in Kolkata and my J2 kind of said, Dekha korbi. So, and I'm the kinds who I'm like seriously starstruck. So I'm like, will she even meet someone like me? And he said, yeah, I'll try and get it done. So that's how it all worked. And then I started reading up on her, and I read that she dislikes well-dressed people. And that psyched the hell out of me, because I didn't know what I was supposed to wear and what I should do. And I was in Kolkata on a vacation. So, one wasn't really carrying very decent clothes, but the whole business of having to dress down. So I actually borrowed my mother's blouse, which was like 2 sizes larger than what I would wear, and a seriously rundown sari, again borrowed off someone, and thought I looked, maybe a part to be able to meet her, because I had been told this story that she asked somebody summarily to leave because his shirt was very white. So that remained with. So anyways, when I met her, and then I had also read about her temper, that she can summarily ask you to leave and what have you. So I was petrified. So anyways, I went to meet her, and then and then the way she put me to ease, I think the first thing, if I remember correctly, she said, "Cha khabe?" And then she said, "Chini pabe na kintu." So I said, it's fine. And then some really bad tea was given, which I was not able to do. And I put it down. She said, "Khub kharab?" I said, "Nah." I'm trying to figure out whether I should get up and throw that tea, or whether I should sip it, or what should I do with that tea. And in my confusion, I did nothing. I just let it lie. And she said, "Noshto hocche." So she pulled the tea towards herself. It was really crazy. All of them, she sang. She was humming all of that. She was humming something. So, and then she let a few books fall, on the floor. So there was this complete chaos. And by the end of it, I don't know, for some reason, I started laughing. And she said, "Interview nebe." So now, it started like that. And then I don't know how this worked, but and at that point of time, she was working for the Nondigram Shingur movement in a huge way. So that one, which was supposed to be an academic interview related to her books, somehow that took on a different it became like a 3-day affair where she agreed to do an interview on camera. Now we didn't have anybody, at least I didn't know anybody, so we got some, there's some person who would come and who would wield a camera for us for some time while this interview was going on. And to talk about Mahashweta, and then I was calling her Didi 1 minute, ma'am the next minute. So she said, "Jaiche bolo," that kind of thing. And then and every time we took a break, it was so hot, Calcutta summers, we'd take a break. And in all of this, the videographers, who were again brand new, they'd never done anything with a video camera before. So they would make us switch off the fan so that the noise doesn't carry. It was sweltering, hot, miserable, absolutely. So every time they said cut, everybody would kind of stretch on their chairs or sort of move around a little bit. What this lady who was 80 plus at that point of time, she immediately picks up the phone and she starts trying to locate a doctor for Nondigram. So even that 5 minutes, she was not wasting, and she wasn't relaxing. And at one point of time, this person who was taking the video, she said, he tried to whisper into my ear saying, ask her to sit still for a bit, because otherwise it's very difficult to do this. So I kind of tried to whisper, even as she was on the phone, that keep the camera focused on her, don't focus on me, otherwise, So she puts down the phone and she says, jailer asha ne ke dekhbe ke? Dujon ke now. So, so she was a remarkable person. I mean, when you ask me this question, who is she? Now it's very difficult. She was very, like you very correctly say, mother to a lot of people. Called her ma. She was incredible. She was. She lived for her beliefs. She sang Hindi songs when she felt like it, and so completely unself-conscious. And she talked about the 2 dressing gowns and 2 nighties that she had, which she even wore to the film festivals abroad. And so she was just the same person everywhere, and that one person had all of that in her. So I think that's what I'd say to what kind of a person she was. I mean, it left an sort of, I don't even know how to describe that feeling. And after that, it became an annual affair. I would just go and meet her and have that terrible tea. And by then, I'd even actually started enjoying that tea. So, and she remained just the same till, I think, till just about very close to the very end, when she was still talking and still sipping her tea and still bad-mouthing whoever she wished to. So that's how I remember her, as this incredible person. She could be your regular grandma, and she could be, this sword-wielding Jhansi Ki Rani all at once.
Okay, Shambhu, let me come in here. And you are Mahashweta Devi's nephew, right? You are his nephew. So you, like Nandini was talking about her first experience, which is very little one knew of her and had met her. We can understand what fun you must have had the first meeting with the Cha. But then, Shambhu, you have known her as a family member. You have known her on a personal level, of course. So how does this relative Mahashweta Devi differs with the public property Mahashweta Devi? There are 2 Mahashweta Devis. At some point of time, I know they sort of merged. But interaction, I'm sure there are many of your growing up with Mahashweta Devi. Let me put it that.
No, I don't think I should claim any such thing about growing up with Mahashweta Devi. Of course, she was there. We were all in Kolkata, and of course, she was a part of the family gatherings, which were typically her birthday, because I think mid-80s or after the mid-80s, she was pretty much the eldest in the family, in my mother's sort of side of the family. And therefore, even before that, certainly, but her birthday became a sort of January, I think it was mid-January, was a sort of a day when everyone got together at her house. At Tashara, there was the Bhai Phota was important. I think those were the only 2 real days of the year when everyone got together. Not to say that no one met otherwise, certainly they did, but she was busy, not always in Kolkata, and all of that. So the other time we spent with her a lot was right at the end of the year every year, which is when we went to Baharampur, which is where Mahashweta Devi Bari was in Baharampur. So going there for about a week towards the end of the year was a big thing. That said, I really shouldn't claim any sort of great, I spent so much time with Mahashweta Devi growing up, and she was a great inspiration to me and impacted my life tremendously. No. Of course she was famous. Of course she was this, famous writer, a famous person and all of that. And yes, it's true that Baharampur, especially when a lot of us cousins got together, she was the storyteller. She would put us to sleep, and she would put us to sleep by telling us extremely scary stories. That was her way to make children go to sleep quickly. Scare us out of our wits. and force us to sleep. So we won't even get up to go to the loo or anything. We just stay in bed. That's it. So that was her sort of formula to end the evening for the youngsters. And that's really it. Right? To Pore, after we got slightly older, she was like Nandini mentioned briefly. She liked her Hindi cinema. Of course, the Dilip Kumar, Devanand, Raj Kapoor type stuff, the older films, and she developed an interest, I think, after the advent of VHS, VCR, VCP in the 80s, when she had access to one, she became interested in all the Amitabh Bachchan, Mithun Chakravarti kind of, Anil Kapoor, Jackie Shroff kind of masala films with a lot of jharpeet, with a lot of maramari, whatever, wherever there was more action kind of films, really, I suppose it was just letting, relaxing and more than anything else. All the heavy stuff she did all day. But that sort of renewed a little thing with me, especially. I don't know if it was true of other cousins as well, where I would sort of tell her what I had seen, because Hindi films were a big deal in the 80s. It's not the best decade for Hindi films, but it was, you go to a theater to watch a film or a VCR, or you get a cassette and watch something. And he told Poromashi that, this is superb. It's got like everyone's fighting and lots of blood and whatever it is. Watch it now. And she'd immediately watch it. And the Hindi songs as well. So there was a bit of a bond, not afresh, it never went away. But that was another reason to sort of, for us youngsters to, get together with her. And I don't know if, she was approximately 50 years older than me. So obviously that's like 2.5, 3 generations practically. Kaji, what more can you bond over? So it was perhaps her way of sort of, I won't say bringing herself down, it was a genuine interest, but in terms of doing what the kids like doing, which obviously, like Nandini said, she was brusque, she was aggressive in her own way. She didn't have time for fools. But she, I suppose, made an effort to these children in the family who, when you're 10 years old, does it matter your Poromashi is Mahashweta Devi? No, it doesn't really. I mean, she's just Poromashi. It's much later that you perhaps realize that she's the celebrated author, very important author around the world, one of the most important ones in many respects. But does it really matter when Bhai Pota, she's sitting there or singing a song, or she's doing it like any other Mashi or anyone else in the family? So it didn't really matter then, but yeah, it certainly mattered, I guess, in a sense.
Well, Shambhu, I think that was what shall I say, feeling that you just spoke about. And I think, Nandini, you will agree with me, her telling you Bhutian Golpo at night so that, you'll go up to sleep, and the rest of it was really heartwarmer. Now, hold on there, Shambhu. I'm now going to read out, because I put this down, a couple of questions regarding the book that you have translated. So I want to carry on there and allow me to just check my this list as to okay, you can hear me. Okay, the question obviously is that this particular book that you translated, right? First of all, I have great difficulty in pronouncing this, Lail-e-Ashman. Am I right? As one of Devi's major protagonists.
I missed.
How does she compare? Yeah, your name of the book is, your English is something else, but I'm just saying, how does she compare with other Devi protagonists like Draupadi or Draupadi, as she's called in some book, or Jhansi Ki Rani or Ajat Rashid Ma?
This is for me or no?
Yeah, this is for you. This is for you.
Okay,
You're the one who.
I mean, because you translated that book.
Yes. The audio was a bit off. Yeah.
Okay.
Favorably. If you, so first of all, it's a completely different genre of literature from most of what she did. I'm not an expert on her writing. I've enjoyed it. Like, not all of it is enjoyable. It's very tough reading at times. I shouldn't say enjoyed her writing because that's not true. It's tough. It's disturbing. It's distressing at times, and it's people who have read her know her and how difficult it can be at times. But Lail-e-Ashman Raina, the Bengali and Mirror of the Darkest Night, the English is a completely different genre in which, in the sense that it's very filmy. which perhaps appealed to me when I was younger. It's filmy, and a film was made of it, though a very skeletal resemblance to the book. Dilip Kumar, Barachani, Sanjeev Kumar, Vaijayantimala, and so on. A very sad effort, actually. I'll just come to that in a moment. Because this is an epic romance. There's betrayal. It's like those taglines for Hindi films, like love, betrayal, dhoka, that sort of thing. It's all those things which you don't associate with Moshita Devi's writing, Hoover, whatever, and that's what makes it stand out in a big, big way. But where Laili Ashman, the character, is kind of a piece with many of her much more celebrated and politically stronger characters, relevant characters, it is in the feminism angle. I know we'll go to Nandini about it, but being this extremely strong female lead in a world of thugs and it's a very man's world that she inhabits in the book, and powerful men, strong, powerful, rich men, and that's what the movie is like, where Vaijayantimala's character is almost a caricature and doesn't do any justice to Laili Ashman. But in the book, she's off a piece because she inhabits this world. She is unashamed to just go out and do what she wants and get what she wants. Of course, there's a lot of sexual politics. That's kind of like a running theme. But in that sense, and maybe whether she gets it or not is another matter, but in just the way she conducts herself, how, perhaps because of her beauty, there are these men, primarily Kundan, maybe a couple of others, who are, she's sort of pulling the strings in a sense. But that's not all there is to it. It's got so many layers. It's really like an epic, which makes it so fantastic. It's an epic that traverses like Lucknow, Kolkata, the Wajid Ali Shah years, comes down, goes back and forth, pulls in lots and lots and lots of strands. And yeah, that's so therefore, at the end of it, maybe not when I read it when I was 15 years old, but certainly when I read it again at 30 and then reread it, I felt she was an outstanding character. Feminist, I don't know, but a very strong, outstanding woman lead character in a novel. And for I think I'll leave it there because that's what I found, and that's what makes it such a fascinating book as well.
Great, that's inspiration. But now, Nandini, let me come to you. And another factor, we talked about her being the spokesperson of the face of the tribals in India. We talked about the downtrodden, right down to the rickshawala. We were discussing whether she's a feminist or not. But one more thing, she's also done work for children. This question of her being a history-based story, like the one that about her Jhansi Ki Rani, she had a lot of stories based on historical evidence, or she had her interpretation, but they were itihash, in some form. So, in 96 novels, how did she, and number of short stories, I'm leaving that apart, how did all this happen? And where does exactly she fit in? Who is she?
Yeah, the who is she becomes a very problematic thing. And I don't know if any of us is qualified to answer that because she's all of that and more. But about Jhansi Ki Rani, she spoke to me. And I think she was 28 when she wrote Jhansi Ki Rani. And the story goes, or how she related it, like I said, I have it on record, that she left her child with the husband and she took a camera and she landed in Bundelkhand in Jhansi, and she interviewed people on the streets and she collected the songs and the stories from people. And we didn't have, at that point of time, very fancy names for all of this. So, the names that we now attach, like people's histories, creation of oral history, people's history or subaltern history. Now, here was this person who presumably did not know any of that per se, terminology. She she was doing exactly that by going and talking to people. And she discovered for herself that Jhansi Ki Rani is much more than how we know Jhansi Ki Rani. Jhansi Ki Rani is alive in Bundelkhand. People sing her songs. She lives there. She's a character who's resurrected every time there is a shadi or a barat, where you would not quite associate Jhansi Ki Rani, but she is one of them. And therefore, every time there is even a shadi happening, they will sing Rani of Jhansi ke songs. So one of the things, if I remember correctly, पत्थर मिट्टी की फौज बनाई, चली ग्वालियर. I have it here. If you give me a minute, I could just read it out for you, and it's quite delightful.
Sing it out. Why read? Just sing it out.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but I can read it out to you. पत्थर मिट्टी से फौज बनाए, काट से कटवार, पत्थर उठाकर घोड़ा बनाई, चली ग्वालियर. So this kind of songs which she collected, and if I can read a little from what she says. So I was right about the 28th. I had gone to Jhansi, Gwalior, and I still remember villagers sitting around a wood fire. It was December, very cold, and they sang these following lines, which I've already read. It is also true that all my life I have been or remained a professional writer. Writing is the only way to support myself and my extended family. After the 1970s, I've been involved in people's history. So by then, at the point when we were talking, she did mention things like people's histories. She also made a very valid point that these were, she wasn't quite sure whether these were stories, these were historical facts, these were, so these were the subaltern stories that she was collecting, and she crafted a story out of it. And like Shammu very correctly tells us, and you also, and all of us as readers, she doesn't make for easy reading. The reason why she doesn't make for easy reading is because there is so much of lived history in what she's doing and what she's talking about, and the complexity of language. In fact, Shammu should tell us more about it, because translating her is that much tougher, because there are so many, her language is so layered. You have so many meters, you have so many different kinds of linguistic styles that she sort of uses, that I don't know if translating her is an easy enough process. So her writing, and she also is very clear about not writing for what we term as art for art's sake, because she doesn't believe in that. She says, I don't know what that is. So if I write a political treatise. I write for a particular reason. I don't just write. To that, she also adds that the just right part is where she needs to make money. So she wrote a lot of stuff where, and a lot of columns, because she needed the money. She gave up teaching, and that money was needed, and her family was run with that money. So all of that she was writing. But serious works or whatever, I think she also compartmentalized her work in a certain manner. So these creations came out of reality as she saw it. And then she wove it around in the form of some kind of a story. And if I may say, the stories were very loose, and they're not the best crafted stories. Now, if we go into the craftsmanship of how a storytelling is happening, Moshita might not be the best storyteller, but believe you me, she's one of the most hard-hitting storytellers. So she gets across to you, but she either psychs the hell out of you, or she pulls you into the movement. But there is always a movement. It's never story for story's sake, I think, which was probably one of the reasons she scared the youngsters with her stories, because her stories had to have a purpose, and she was very aware of it. So this, of course, is so that's what I see in craftsmanship. Yeah, sorry, I missed.
Yeah,
that.
because Nandini mentioned it, he's actually thrown 2-3 things at me. I think she's a terrible storyteller. If you were 6 years old and in Baharampur at night, she's a terrible storyteller, and that's never changed in my mind.
I
But
believe you.
first thing is about oral histories, whatever the terms you used. I think it's a common strand. I mean, even if you look at Laili Ashpanarayana, there is a fair bit of history of Lucknow, Kolkata, all of it. There's a fair bit of understanding or at least a basic idea of that kind of semi-classical courtesan music, the poetry of Bahadur Shah Zafar and whoever else, Mirza Ghalib, Jaja, all those things. So there's an awareness of it. It might not have been an area of specialization, or I suspect that sort of music was not her cup of tea, good or bad cup of tea, whatever. But it was not her cup of tea. But she probably read up or probably spoke to the right people for it. And if you've been to Banaras, if you've been to Lucknow, if you've at least a couple of us are from Kolkata, you know that this person has read up or has made the effort to know these cities, or at least a basic idea of these cities to structure the story. One, two, Jhansi Ki Rani is very specifically about a person, as is the case with a few of her, Bisha Munda or Chotni Munda, and various other stories are about people. But if you read them, they're all based on oral histories. They're all based on research. None of it is just sitting at home and writing a story. There is an awareness, there is an engagement with the issue, and that's what probably makes them, despite what you say, and I'm not going to get into good storyteller, bad storyteller, I don't know, but even if she were to be a poor storyteller or not a great crafts person when it came to telling stories, the fact that they appealed so much was because of the content. Therefore, to go by what you're saying, therefore it was the content, and the content was always so very strong, and it could only you can't be faffing your way through life. There's a lot of very strong research, whether it's oral history, whether it's experienced history, whether it's read history, whatever it might be. So even the Nakshal books, or the Hajachurashima or whatever, or Rudali, and you talked about 28-year-old person who didn't know these terms. Till she was 90 or thereabouts, she didn't really know Hindi. Not well, certainly. So, to be in Bundelkhand or wherever and speaking to all these people in very poor Hindi, it was remarkable, wasn't it? And what was the third thing you told me about her language? Again, I don't know about you or Shujit Babu. I don't know the language they speak in the various tribal communities that she wrote about. In fact, her writing is my only sort of connection with those, as might be the case with a few others. That's the only place I've read how the Ho people speak or the others speak. But assuming it's correct, and there's no reason for it not to be, it's again a lot of research, and it must make translation tough. Before this session started, we mentioned Gayatri Spivak briefly. She's done a lot of her translations of those heavy, serious books, and I remember those underlines under certain passages where to express that this is in a different dialect. It can't be easy. It really can't be easy. Thankfully, Laili Ashpanarayana didn't present those challenges.
Right. And now I think there was a word that Nandini had used a little while earlier before she went to you, Shamu, subaltern. Now, I think we need to talk a little about, this is it, the many faces of Mahashweta Devi, the interface of the tribals, and if you were to look into their Odhikar and how books she had written on the tribal and Gayatri Spivak, the Gayatri Spivak on Subaltern have a voice. She actually gave that voice. I mean, if you were to look at it that way. So where does that exactly? I mean, she's one thing is certain. So far, what is coming out from what you are discussing, that this is what Mala Mukherjee has also made a point, that she's really been truly a remarkable book. I mean, such a lot of things. She's not just another story writer. She's also not another author.
I lost the audio.
So did I, and I can't see Shujita either.
yeah, maybe that's something that happens when you put a viewer's comment.
Oh, okay. So shall we continue?
Should we
or
just
how does this?
out of this and continue the conversation till he comes back? So yeah, since we discussed taking her to the rest of the world, and Spivak and various others played a huge role, though. Maybe, I mean, that's something you know a bit more about.
So Spivak, if I may come in here, I mean, what among the other things that she's done, she's also given us this term, "Can the Subaltern Speak?" And every time we are in a literary conference, we invariably talk about "Can the Subaltern Speak?" And it's been answered forever and ever and ever, and continues to be debated and talked about. Well, the way I see it is that with Mahashita, the subalterns have always been speaking. And the subalterns have, whether with Mahashita or without Mahashita, they have always been speaking. It is people like us who choose not to hear it. But again, Mahashita facilitated it with her Bortika. So probably the only magazine where the subaltern person would write in his or her language and contribute essays. And she doggedly brought out that volume. So Bortika kept coming out, and Bortika means a lamp. So that lamp was lit and allowed to remain that way. So that I think in itself is a tremendous effort, that you have people who have, everyone has stories, but to make that person, document that person's story, and then you bring it out. So there was this constant effort that went on. And of course, her phenomenal work with G.N. Devi, for the languages, Professor Devi still continues to work, so where they were both working for the denotified tribes, the government of India just called them denotified. So they were notified tribes in the British era, then they became denotified tribes, and that's where we left them. So the work that Professor Devi, Mahashita Di, and several others, the kind of work that they were doing for the denotified tribes, and for the preservation of languages. So the tribal languages which have been allowed to die or not survive. So trying to either develop a script for it, or trying to develop that, to keep alive that oral tradition, so that it gets passed on and it gets recognition as a language. So a lot of phenomenal work has gone into that also. So why with her language is so important, I feel, and these so many registers that she seems to be able to manage in the stories that she writes. And you very correctly talking about Oronerodikar. I mean, I think it's one of the toughest books if one sets about trying to translate it, because there are so many languages and so many registers, and I don't know how she works that out. So her years of stay with the Shobors and the Lodha tribes and people who called her their ma, and she was completely at ease with all of those people. I remember when she was 80, her biggest regret. Now, the two things I remember: one is, I want to live till I'm 100. And she said that about 10 times. And I found that very funny initially, without quite understanding why anybody would want to live to be 100. And then she says, well, I have that much writing to do. And that writing to do was not merely anything that she would write, because everything was for a purpose. So at that point of time, Nondigram was what was primarily on her mind. So whatever could be done for Nondigram. So, and she would be at it. And the biggest regret that she seemed to have, she was severely diabetic. The biggest regret that she had was that I can't walk the way I used to walk, and I can't go and live amongst, the tribal people in their habitats the way I used to be able to do once upon a time. That was eating into her. So here was this octogenarian woman, by then already chair-bound, not able to get up without help. And yet, that didn't deter her from doing so many things that she was doing. Like I said, that 5-minute break that the videographer would give us, she didn't stretch her back like most of us were doing. She would make that one phone call to try and get a doctor organized in the process. And then her acerbic tongue and her sense of humor, throughout, he said the craziest of things. And by the end of it, I think I had reached that point with her where I could just start laughing because I had by then figured that
Sort of using
how,
buzzwords and family gathering for us.
oh yes, oh yes, and you should have seen our videographer now, a young person, and of course, Mahashweta Devi is big, so the poor guy, he didn't know whether he was supposed to laugh or be serious. Now here is this woman cracking the craziest of jokes and saying the craziest of things. You should have seen how uncomfortable he was, and she reveled in making him uncomfortable. She saw it and she kept at it, and very wickedly. So all of that you could see that. So that was the person that she was. I mean, how I know her. Shammo,
Yeah. Again, not get into the person she was or the writer she was, but along with we mentioned Spivak briefly, is her sort of reach within India, and that was also pretty remarkable. I don't know enough to say that whether some other Bengali writer had gone out to various Indian languages as much as she had, but I suspect not. For example, my wife is Malayali. Mahashweta Devi is an icon in her family, and this was well before I met my wife. When Mahashweta Devi went to Kerala, and she did moderately often, it made headlines. It was reported in the newspapers. She's a cultural icon there, a political icon as well, I guess. And her work is very, very, very widely translated in Malayali. Now, I don't know about other languages, but I suspect that it's the case with at least a couple of other languages as well, and that perhaps explains her sort of significance, if nothing else. I mean, beyond that, I don't know, but certainly that's what it is. I mean, taking these issues across India, across the world, via translation, just a remarkable achievement.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. But
Sujit Babu, we sort of
tell me something
without you.
Come again, Shamo?
I just said we continued without you because you went off. Yeah.
No, please do. That was the whole idea, because in the internet world we keep going on and off, but keep talking. And in fact, they want to listen to you. I am just only playing the kind of the head waiter in the entire scenario. But but I must also tell you, this is once she was very agitated with a person who was a minister in the left front government, and for some odd reason, this left front minister, this was during the 34 years of the left front, he used to go around wearing a suit, proper tie and a jacket, a proper suit, and she had some problem with her, and the suit wearing minister, the suit part of it agitated her even more. So I was witness once to a session where she was, like expressing her agitation. That's the best way I can put it. Expressing her agitation. Bum-fronted Monty, but a suit pore. That was the exact description. And we said, yeah. But now, yeah. Who?
I'm sure she didn't say bata.
I'm sure
yeah, that is, like TV te hoy na, when you say a dirty word or something, it just ping. So this is supposed to be that bata. It's supposed to be. No, she never said bata. My God, she never would. She would not be Mahashweta Mashi if she said that. Okay, now somebody wants to hear some more of her humorous lines. I think we'll come to that. But one very major question here. Now, the way we are discussing about her work, her life, and not just the writing. Of course, the writing is taking. I mean, it's all about the writing. Ever since she passed away, I think that was 2014. Am I right, Nandini? Shambhu? She passed away in 2014. Yeah. Ever since she passed away with this huge later. Yeah. Well, my point is.
16, but
yeah.
2016. Okay, not 2014, 2016. But since then, has there been any action, any plan that has been taken? Two things: to get on further with Mahashweta Devi's work, reach it to more number of people? And have there been any major impact on different, what shall I say, activists and others in taking forward the causes that she wrote for? Or are we just saying that, okay, she's gone, thank you, she was a great writer, and here are some translations? Well, both of you all can answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
then,
Both of you all can answer this, because this is.
Sure.
I'm saying, what are we doing with our? Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea, to be honest. I have no idea, to be honest, where the work's been taken forward. But I'd guess that even if work was happening, and I don't know if it was, even if it was, I'm sure after 2014 it stalled. I'm pretty certain that after 2014, none of the things in those areas would have progressed. If it was happening at all, which I'm not aware of. But certainly under the present dispensation, you wouldn't expect too much to happen on those fronts. That's all I can say. I really don't know beyond that. Nandini.
Yeah, so I mean, I couldn't have put it any better. I think Shamu just said it. In fact, if I remember correctly, there was somebody, I think University of Rajasthan, if I'm not too mistaken, where for performing one of her plays, the person was dismissed. The department which organized it, there was trouble against them, and so on and so forth. So really talking about the issues that she talked about and furthering her causes, yes, it's not going to be the easiest thing. But as far as her books were concerned, I think Naveen Kishore and Seagull Publications, they were trying to translate her entire works into English. And Mahasweta was extremely excited about it. And she kept saying, korte parbe na, সম্ভব না, আমি এত লিখেছি, সম্ভব না. So and this would get added to the thing of her wanting to live to be 100, so that maybe by that time the would happen. And then she would look at her bookshelf and say, no, this is just not possible. It's absolutely not possible. So I really don't think even that has happened. I'm sure they are all trying. But for somebody who's been such a versatile writer, and then with the kind of difficult writing that she does, quote unquote difficult, to be able to translate her also is very, very difficult. So no, I'm afraid, and I think that is where we as academics and the likes of Shamu and you as journalists and advertisers also need to come in, because these causes need to be furthered and talked about, and they just should not be shelved. I mean, she did so much. And yes, what are we doing? I don't know. I mean, most of us, unfortunately, or I can speak for myself, I'm an armchair actor.
Just to add to what Nandini was saying, I mean, of course, as a nation, we've sort of gone backwards in the last 6 odd years. But that aside, just to talk about her work, Mahasweta Devi's work, I've always found it pretty incredible that someone who wrote on these subjects, it's almost like art films, no? Like parallel films, parallel cinema. And to have the mass, just the success as a writer was pretty incredible, wasn't it? I mean, just primarily in Bangla, of course, but even elsewhere, and in eras where there were other very, very, very major Bengali writers, Yashini Gangopadhyay and Shishir Mukhopadhyay and various others. It's not like she was the only writer in Bangla. And to be writing these difficult stories and art films and being so successful, it probably says something about the readership as well, the quality of the readership. I don't know if we still have it. But it also probably tells us about just the quality of the content of her stories, which there was an appeal. There was certainly a huge appeal.
And for a woman, because see, that part we don't talk very much about, because somehow Mahasweta, we feel she not only broke glass ceiling, she went someplace else. But till Mahasweta, somehow I can't think of not that I'm an expert on Tamil literature, far from it, but who are the other major writers, being woman writers? So the minute you think Bangla literature, there's this whole host of brilliant male authors who immediately come to mind. And then you have Mahashita.
Not of this genre, but you had your Leela Majumdars and Asha Devi. Many others, but not
completely different genres. Completely different genres.
Yeah.
And Leela Majumdar, she acknowledged it. Her favorite.
This kind of gritty.
So somebody writing
now,
this kind of and somebody who never shied away from it. See, while writing Hajat Churashir Ma, she talks about how these two Naxal youths, they accosted her on the street. And they actually told her that you're writing about everything and everybody, but you don't seem to be writing about us. And that put her on this thing of writing about it. And the very interesting thing that she does there is she talks about this mother who's unable to, who does not know her son and only finds out the son through that tag, Hajat Churashi, and then the discovery of the boy and what had led him into the struggle and what had happened therefore. So because she was then of that age where she would be almost a mother, if not a mother, to those youngsters who were out there on the streets and who were doing what they were doing. So in a sense, it becomes exploratory for her. So everything was lived experience, exploratory and hard-hitting, and she laid it out exactly as she saw it. She didn't try to camouflage things or to sweet sugarcoat anything. So I think that honesty with her work, and the honesty with which are activism. Now, how many activist writers do we have? All of us are armchair academics and writers. When I talk about dressing down to meet her, it came from this huge complex of being an armchair academic. I mean, who was going to meet this activist who's been in the jungles and who's been outside and who's done the kind of work that she has done? And I don't know how many of us are there who even can do 1/2 or 1/3 of what she has achieved. Not just in terms of writing, but also in terms of that activism. It's incredible. And I think that's who she is. That's why I say it's very difficult when you ask a question like, who is Mahashita Devi? One doesn't know. She's
precisely. That is but you're right. I don't think we'll no amount of discussion will ever be able to find who she. That's the first question I asked you. But now let me tell you two things. One is that the answer that you all gave me to what I had put up, that what is happening to her work, is it being carried forward by except Siegel? No, that I was being naughty because I knew this is the answer that you all would give me for sure. So I was just sending out a loaded question, getting back a loaded reply, which was anticipated. Now, two more things I want to cover. One with Nandini and other with Shammo. Shammo, let me come to you first. And that is, how is this, now that you have translated, the book is out in the market, what has been the response like? I'm not talking about sales, that's another that will probably come, because I have also got my own publications. Those sort of things do not happen like, we're not James Hadley Chase. So how have the society per se, the literati have sort of accepted this?
Well, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Maybe they haven't received it at all in any way. I have no idea. Honestly, I have no idea. The few people, all people who like me and people I know, have liked the translation, but that doesn't say anything. It's a wonderful story, and I don't say this because I've translated it, but it is because of that I've translated, right? So it's a wonderful story. I mean, there's been a couple of write-ups here and there. A couple of people have read about it and liked it. I don't think it. I've written a few other books on sport and Hindi cinema, which are typically the areas I write on. And those were written about a bit more than this. I don't know if it's because translations are not written about. I suspect not. I suspect translations are not reviewed or talked about as much as original fiction or English language in fiction and so on and so forth. So I don't know at all, honestly. Whoever read it, and this can never be an honest view, have liked it. And that's really all I know. I enjoy doing it.
I think no. Precisely. Now, Shamo, I'm sure people who are attending this talk show today, this Adda today, I'm sure those who haven't read your book will obviously read your book because I'm sure I'll be the first one, and I can see Nandini nodding her head. Okay, we're going to do that, and so many others will. We will. No. But now my second thing: when is your next book? When is your next translation on Moshita Devi? See, if the others are not doing it, then we have to do it.
Yes.
This is for me again.
You have to find another story. This is for you again. When is your next story? Next translation?
No,
because as Nandini was saying, what are we doing? So let's do it.
No, I thoroughly enjoyed translating Laili, but I don't think I have the bite to translate the. First of all, her best books are all translated. Her hard-hitting, serious stuff, they've all been translated, at least in English, which is the only other language I know. And they've reached the whole world and they're being talked about. So there isn't really a lot to translate. Plus, I don't think I'm certainly not the right person to be attempting to translate some of those heavier, more difficult works. That's really how it is. I think, but honestly, this book I felt was, apart from a book I loved reading, is an important sort of addition to people who like reading Moshita Devi and think she's only about Isha Munda and Choti Munda and Draupadi and in English breast stories and whatever else. I think it's very, very important to know that she could also write this epic love story, the story of betrayal and various other things, love, romance, drama, murder, all of treachery.
If I come in here, Shammo, I'm not buying that answer because one translation, if at all it has happened, doesn't mean a second translation can't happen. So I think there is scope for a lot of translation and translatability of her works, and and I would look towards people like you to do it. I mean, even if Breast Stories
Thank you
has
very
come
much,
out,
but don't think I'm the right person for them. I'd love to do it, but I might not be the right person for them.
Shamo, don't underestimate yourself. If you have gone this far, you're a writer. Don't underestimate yourself. We want you to write.
I'm not being modest, nothing. I'm being absolutely honest.
আরে কিছু একটা কর লে ক্যারেক্টার বই কি আছে মানে just get on with it, man. I mean,
Anyway, we'll do that another time offline.
Oh, right. No. So, we'll talk about it offline. Okay, Nandini, now the question we were discussing. Moshita Devi as the icon of feminism. Feminist Moshita Devi.
Okay.
Subaltern, tribal, right. Downtrodden, now the feminist.
What I was telling both of you in our informal Adda before this Adda, so many writers, and Moshita is not unique in this, many writers from the third world, if at the cost of using politically incorrect terms, but if we are still doing the first world, third world thing, so many writers from the third world countries, which would, so many African writers, many Indian writers, and in this case, I will say Bhasha writers, even if I'm not talking about people who are writing in English, but people who've written in Bhasha languages, have had this huge amount of discomfort, if I can use the word, with feminism. Because see, feminism per se, as a movement, we saw it became, and it, to a large extent continues to be a white woman's movement. So a lot of black women, a lot of African women, when you did read out that that little bio note of mine, so I've worked on African women authors, and pretty much everyone has refused to slot themselves as feminist, and yet their books are everything feminist that we understand. So in Moshita's own words, she says, I write for the dispossessed. I write for the man who is tortured and the woman who's tortured. I write for the lower class caste person who goes through. So I write for everyone who is dispossessed. It is not merely for the woman that I write. See, this question also came up hugely during Rudali and Usha Ganguly's rendition of it. So you had a woman writer who had written Rudali, and then you had a woman director who was directing it in Hindi. So this question came up several times to both of them, and both of them seem to be saying this, that we don't want to sort of fix our genres into any ism per se. We write about whoever is dispossessed, whoever we write about the subaltern, we write about the dispossessed person, we write about the person who has suffered. And in this case, as it happened, it was the woman became center stage. She was center stage. So in a lot of Mahashweta's works, you do find, so you have a Draupadi. Now, is Draupadi a feminist? Is Draupadi an activist? Is Draupadi a Naxalite? Is Draupadi what is she? I mean, if you really had to slot her, so would the first, let me pose this question to both of you. If I were to ask you, who is Draupadi Mejhin? Would the first answer be she's a feminist? You might say she's a Naxalite. You might say she's this Adivasi girl, and she's fighting this battle for water, and then what happens from there. So I would think of Mahashweta in a similar vein. So she talks about, it's her activism which takes center stage, and the activism is for everybody. It is not only for the women that she was an activist for. Women, of course, just as important. Characters are women who are center stage. But she was talking about all these dispossessed people. So there was also this husband who was shot in the head when he was trying to drink water. So was the story not about him at all? So I think I would defend her here when she says that I don't want to slot myself or call myself a feminist. Yet she foregrounds women. She talks about women. She talks about what they go through, and she does a brilliant job of it. So again, I think, again, from the point of view of being a literary critic, I would not pigeonhole her. I would just say that she has this huge gamut, and she can talk about all of that and more. So women are foregrounded, yes, but that's not probably the only thing that she does. She does much more than that, or she does many more things alongside. Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Wonderful writer of children's stories.
Yeah, I just that. Yeah, children's story. Did I hear you right? Yeah.
Okay, just as an addition.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's that. I've only accessed it in English, I'm afraid. So the non-vegetarian cow, and that's such a delightful tale. Yes.
That's been translated. There's also one called the YY Girl.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, there's very many other Bangla gulpos, but I think those are the two that have been translated here.
Super. Well, I think if I may say, it's almost we are into the 70th minute of this Adda, and by Jove, man, this has been absolutely a wholesome session. And I think all our viewers who are here, Nimi Jayachandran, I think, is a friend of Shammo, says hello, and Navneet Prabhu. These are two names I'm not familiar with. Finds it very interesting insights, must be friends of yours. So there are, as in this case, there are no questions, because this discussion, I think, has covered all aspects. And having covered all aspects of Mahashweta Devi, we have come to the grand conclusion that we don't exactly know where you can slot. And maybe that's the way she wanted it to happen. So, and I think, and Nandini, Shammo, I, and a lot of others over here, and if we are into Mahashweta Devi in some form, to the point of view of discussing this today, we'll have to carry it even forward. So,
yes,
we will do this. Shammo, you will still think of doing a translation. Nandini, we will all sit down and try and see what else can we do to carry it forward. And I must thank all my viewers here today for coming in. And incidentally, the post that was put up, because you all shared it and it went to all over it had a maximum number of reach, which is the yardstick you measure social media post. I think we reached about 2,000 or close to that number of reach that post that we had for this program. end of the show, we will know how much it is, how many viewers had come. But viewers keep coming later, because those of whom who have missed out today, this will be on our Facebook page, on the Kahani Kancheti Facebook page. So you can always click and watch it over there. And very soon we'll also put this up. Okay, Ina says here, it's been a wonderful conversation, Nandini and Shammo. Ovik Sen says it's been a great session. So it's really been a great session. We enjoyed it thoroughly. Mala says she loved this evening discussion, and she ends by saying, "Long live Mahashweta Devi."
So that's what I was,
precisely.
saying.
Long live Mahashweta.
People I know liked the book. That's my sister, so she obviously liked the conversation.
Right, exactly. Super. So thank you very much for being with us. But I'm taking a promise from you all. You all have to make this promise to me. Laura Williams says a great discussion. Thank you. My promise that I'm extracting from Nandini and Shammo is that, can we again meet up sometime for some other discussion on Adda on this Kahani Kancheti platform?
Absolutely.
I'm booking you all for
Happy to.
another session. If
Not during the
you
IPL.
have enjoyed the Adda, let's have another. Okay, we'll do it after the IPL. As a matter of fact, I'm also cutting down my IPL, shows during IPL, except that next Saturday on 17th, I am actually presenting Rabindranath Biggapon for Indira Goshti for Srinanda. I was about to say Srinanda, who is here, and she says she enjoyed it. So has Radha. So thank you very much for being with us. We meet up again. Keep in touch. And to all my viewers, keep coming back to our sessions and enjoy this kind of an Adda. I'll let you know when the next one is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shuddha,
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Pleasure.
More lovely
My
meeting you.
pleasure.
Bye.
Oh, yes, Shammo. Nandini, we'll catch up. We are neighbors. And Shammo, we will
Sure.
keep in touch, right?
More pleasure.
Thank you.